The Sam Sorbo Show is brought to you in partnership by the Herzog Foundation.
Hi there. Today's guest is a leading voice in classical education online, and also he's a fearless critic of government-run schools, fighting to restore truth and virtue in American classrooms. This is the Sam Sorbo Show. Here we go.
Sam Sorbo,
Sam, welcome back to the program.
I'm glad to welcome Sam Sorbo.
It's great to have you here.
All right, welcome back. My guest today is, he's a prolific writer, he's a dynamic speaker, he's an engaging TV host, and he's also a tenured professor of English and the executive director of the Freedom Project Academy, where I am sitting and shooting today. I'm welcoming to the show Dr. Duke Pesta. Welcome.
Thank you, Sam.
It's great to be here to talk to you, and we have a lot to cover. First of all, I want to get this out of the way because you're the director of Freedom Project Academy. My husband and I are here in support of Freedom Project Academy and speaking at an event that you're doing tonight. Tell us about that and where you see Freedom Project Academy going.
Well, we are a complete online homeschool from kindergarten through high school. We can do the whole curriculums for you, or we can do the mom who wants to teach chemistry but can't. So we can do that. And we were really the very first online school with live teachers. So we kind of broke the mold on this. There's quite a few of them now. And moving forward, we have kids graduating from us every year. And what we keep hearing from mom and dad is, okay, now you got to have a college. So what we would really like to do is start with a 2-year college. So these kids in high school don't have to go to the public universities. They can take their education that they got and preserve it at the next level.
Right. And so it's all classical Christian. Which I think is, you got to point that out. And
yes.
you must have a lot of parents that come to you and they have no idea what classical education is, right?
Yeah, they know Christian education when they see it, but it's much more difficult to define classical. And the way that you could make it really complicated, go back to the Middle Ages, or you can simply point out something that you and I have talked about before. It is putting virtue and character before education. And when you give kids a moral compass, then education becomes a lot easier and a lot more fun for them.
It becomes easier how?
In the sense that they're not resistant. When they become moral and they understand that the world is not gray like the left says, but there's a lot of black and white, right? One of the things I tell my university kids, raise your hand if they're 22-year-old. Raise your hand if you've ever had a situation where you didn't know what the right thing was. Now, you may not choose the right thing, and they admit they've never had it. And I say, I'm 58 years old. I have never been in a situation where I didn't know what the right thing was to do, even if I didn't do the right thing. So all this talk about right, true and false being so difficult, it's not. We make it difficult. And so when you give kids, I think, that understanding, here are the boundaries, here's what is good behavior and what's bad, then they gravitate to the good. Because I think in the human heart, people want to be good. And when they start reading wholesome books and learning math and how complex it is and beginning to get that in their head, I think it moves them the right way. I think what I see as a professor, kids are fighting against education. And I don't blame them, because it's not about morality. It's about politics and ideology. It's about telling you to ignore what you know. You know there's male and female when you're 8 years old. Now your professors or your high school teachers telling you that that's true. Kids are rebelling against education because it has no core, it has no meaning. It's all random. And so structure. Kids need structure, and kids need a framework. Classical education gives it.
And I would say kids need truth.
Yes.
And when they get truth, they recognize it. Mm-hmm. And then they want more, right? And so the fact that the schools are lying to them discourages them from trusting the schools and right? They just then they check out and they're not interested. But you said something else, character precedes education. And so how do you teach character?
Character is virtue, basically. And what we do, and you got to have religion. You got to have Christianity. And so when you start with the premises of Christianity, in our classes, the Bible is shared in almost all the classes that we do. We're non-denominational. I mean, because we don't want to be like the public schools who take away from the parents their choice. We give them the Bible, but we have everything from Catholics to Baptists, and we expose them to the text of the Bible and the moral precepts of the Bible and the commandments, the Sermon on the Mount. You give them that structure and you give them that truth. And once they have that, if they're getting that alongside with the books that they're reading or the papers they're writing or the math that they're doing, or even study something like studying Latin, right, which is so mathematical as a language, it's great for your mind, but it's also on top of that a language that feeds into this kind of a worldview. So when you have, and maybe I'm making this too complicated, if you go back in history in Western culture the last 2,000 years, education was always first about doing the right thing.
Thank you.
And only secondarily subject matter.
Hold on.
We lost that.
Education was always first about doing the right thing. And then secondarily, it was to better yourself as a human being, right?
Yeah.
Self-improvement. But first it was self-improvement. It was doing the right thing. You said something before. You said your students have said to you that they've never been in a position where they knew the difference between right and wrong, so they're that confused, or where they didn't?
They knew that
they've always known
which
what's
choice
right and
was
wrong.
better.
Right. Okay,
but they've been told that all that doesn't exist.
all choices are the same.
Give you an example. These kids are being taught that male and female don't exist.
Right.
But 1,000 made-up genders between are absolutely true.
Right.
And they know that's not true, but they have been browbeaten into pretending. They're pretending what their teachers want, and that makes them angry.
Yes.
And they rebel against education.
Have you? Okay, I'm going off on a little tangent because you're so fun to talk to. Because my son is in the thick of this. He's 23. He's written a book called Embrace Masculinity, and he's all about young men finding their purpose in the protection and provision for a family. That's the purpose for a young man. And of course, the pursuit of wisdom and the pursuit of truth and that. Are you seeing the same? He's seeing sort of this movement in the youth. It's a rebellion against that leftist, there's no right and wrong ideology, that leftist sort of everything is equal ideology towards orthodoxy. Are you seeing that?
Absolutely. And we know that those young boys are voting for Trump. And the reason is, you just said that very eloquently, is that the purpose of boys, young men, is protection. One of the things I do that's really kind of counterculture at my university, I teach the Gospels every semester. That's the book it's controversial, but we do it. So and these kids, even the kids who identify as Christian, they have not read the stories. So we sit down and we read the 4 Gospels, and I point out to them, this is one of the big epiphany for my kids. Jesus of Nazareth is the epitome of masculinity. He is strong. He is vocal, he is committed, and yet he's never violent. He is always suffering and serving. And the kid, particularly the boys, this is
that resonates.
This is the opposite of toxic masculinity. This is the guy, and so
right. But they've also been told, no, God loves you just the way you are.
Exactly.
And God's just so easygoing, and you can do whatever you want because he's going to forgive you anyway. Like that's what they've been sold in their churches.
And when they actually sit down and read the Gospels in my class, I point out every place he says, what does he say to the woman taken in adultery? You can't keep doing this. Right? And they see that. And it goes back to what we said 10 minutes ago, boundaries. Kids without boundaries don't grow up to be good people. They go out to be monsters, right? Boundaries are good things.
They grow up to be politicians.
Politicians or lawyers, God help us.
You're funny. Thanks for tuning into the Sam Sorbo Show. You know, we are in a battle for our very nation, a nation that was founded on Christian principles and on the Bible. The 10 Commandments is the basis for our rule of law. But these days, when you go talk to people on the street, you'll find that most of them don't even know what rule of law means. And that's why I'm so proud to have Herzog Foundation as a sponsor of my show. I also love what they do because they seek for the benefit of Christian education throughout the nation. So Herzog Foundation is a wonderful partner for us here at the Sam Sorbo Show. Thanks for watching. School choice. I want to touch on that because that's a big hot button issue right now. And there are there's a lot of conservatives. There's a conservative movement for school choice. The left has arrayed itself against it. The teachers' unions are against it. So if the teachers' unions are against it, we should be for it. Although I will point out, during COVID, the teachers' unions wanted the schools shut down. And I was like, yes, wait, I'm on the side of the teachers' unions now? So school choice.
This really annoys me. So forget me, get a little passionate here. It really annoys me that the Republican politicians, because that's their only answer, are Republicans in in government. They should be fixing the public schools. Not that I support the public schools, but their job, it's public school. It belongs to our people, right? So why are our Republicans ignoring the rot of the public schools that is destroying children and creating alternatives rather than fixing it? It is not the job of my congressman to give money for me to send my kid to a different school. That's my job. Your job is to fix the broken public schools. So the Republicans are running away from their responsibility. It's the weakest response you can give. We're going to we keep giving the public schools more money every year, even as every year achievement goes down. It's demonstrable. They keep giving the money. They will not fix it. And then they're going to throw us a little bit back of our tax money back to send a kid to a Christian college.
Which is like full on socialism.
Exactly. So if our Republican governors don't get a handle on education, then what good are they? I mean,
so how do they do that?
Well, the way stop rewarding them. I mean, if your kids are in Wisconsin, our kids are reading at 30%, like most places, right? And in Milwaukee, where all these minority kids, we had to do all these changes to help the minority kids, right? Places like Milwaukee, 9%. Only 9% of those kids in Milwaukee can read at grade level.
And that's grade level, which is really not. It's really not grade level.
So my point is, why are you giving our tax money, which completely funds the public schools? They get worse. They get more money. Stop doing it.
How? How do you stop the funding?
In Wisconsin, we have the legislature controlled by the Assembly and the Senate. And even before we had a Democrat governor, we had a governor, Scott Walker. They controlled everything. They didn't do it. I'll tell you why they won't do it. They can do it, but they won't do it because they're afraid of the teachers' unions. Huge, big, billions of dollars that will come after them. So what is it a matter of? We're going to let our kids suffer because we're afraid of the teachers' unions.
Yeah, well, they've found the sort of, it's a release valve.
Yep.
We're going to drain some of the money from the schools, but unfortunately, it leads to other issues that I think you want to touch on.
Yeah, and here's another one, and this is important, I think. If the Republicans were sincere that they really wanted to fix education, because we know the left is lost. We're not going to talk about them. They're a disaster. They would not take our tax money and then give some of it back. They would let us do school choice, spending any money of ours on any education we wanted, and then they would deduct us. We wouldn't have to pay it to the state.
So it would be a tax savings as opposed to a refund or an ESA or right.
Because if you're giving the money to them, and then they let you use it on school, they can tell you how the schools have to be, which is what we're seeing. These charter schools, great idea. A Christian charter school, they give you state money, and then after 2 years, they say, okay, well, now that money is really coming from the state, not the parents.
That's right.
You're going to have to do trans, you're going to have to do this.
Right.
If they're serious about this, the only kind of school choice that matters is if I can put my kid to any school I want or homeschool him, and I don't have to pay you those taxes.
Right.
It's my money, my kid. Then I can do what I want, and the state or the feds can't do anything. But the Republicans, nowhere will they allow that yet.
Because
they control money.
Right.
It comes to them.
Well, I think that they don't. Look, we can try to think of them generously, or we can, impugn them, right? So it's one or the other. Maybe they don't understand that a tax savings to a family is just as good as giving them money.
I mean, I appreciate your moderation. This thing gets me angry. But if you're a lawmaker and you can't see the difference between allowing people to spend their own money versus giving it to you first to be giving some of it back,
right,
then you probably shouldn't be in the assembly, right?
No, I totally agree with that. I wish that it's such a destructive choice that they're making.
And we I think it's a moral thing to call out the Republicans because they have the heart, some of them, to want to fix it.
Right.
So I'm not even talking about the Dems because they're lost. But if you are serious about helping us, then you tacitly understand it's my job to educate my kid. It's not yours.
Right.
So why am I giving you money and you give me a small bit of it back?
Right.
That's not the. And again, because it allows them to change things.
It allows them
to mess with it.
To take control of the competition.
Yep.
Right?
Among other things.
Ultimately, if they can control the competition, then they won't look so bad because they'll make the competition look just as bad as they look. There's
that. And there's the other thing is that the when you do that, when you let us to keep our own money to educate our own kids, our kids are going to do way better than the public school kids.
Right.
And then they have that problem, right? Because you got this whole edifice of public schools, which, as you and I both know, the huge behemoth that is the federal education in this country, it has nothing to do with education. It's about unions, it's about socialization, it's about providing hot lunches and teaching kids about gay identities. It's not about education.
They've ushered all of that stuff in on the, under the guise of education. Like they won on schools. Oh, you got to send your kid to school, and then they mandated school. But initially, of course, school was to teach morals, right? Then they mandated school, and then they ushered in all of these other programs, and now they're saying, but these programs, we need those programs, so we have to keep the schools.
Yep.
Can we dump the schools and just keep the programs?
Sure. But think about this. The program that governs all public schools right now is social emotional learning.
Right.
And I tell my teachers all the time, where in the phrase social emotional learning do you hear math or science or reading?
Exactly.
It's pure sociology. So what has happened to the public schools is that they tolerate some book learning because they have to. But what they're really doing is radical sociology to turn your kids into progressives.
Well, and you say they tolerate some book learning. They clearly don't. Like, there's clearly no book learning going on. We're 40th among 40 nations. So that's last.
Yep.
And now, okay, Trump just announced part of the big, beautiful bill, $1,000 tax credit $1,000 funded savings account for babies, for children, right? What do you think of that?
I mean, he's trying. I give him a lot of props. He's doing a lot more than anybody else has done, or what the new Secretary of Education is trying to do. But again, if you're going to get rid of the Department of Ed, it's going to have to be Congress. Trump really can't just do that.
No.
But I would simply humbly say to him, thank you for doing that. But still, it's their money. So when you're not president and you got a big lib as president, what's going to happen then? He's going to say, okay, you're getting $1,000 for your baby. That means your baby has to go to a school with a teacher who has a degree from Columbia University, right?
Well, it's interesting because the $1,000, it's for the child. It is the child's.
It is.
It belongs to the child. The child can tap into it when he's 18. You can fund, it's a savings account. Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting idea because at least Trump says children have value.
Yep, of course.
I think that's the statement. It's not a lot of money. I mean, it doesn't really move the needle, but it is the statement. And I like the fact that at least he's making that statement. Sure. I would like them to make the statement that parents have value.
Well, I would like to hear them say, I don't know how you could codify it, though, that money can go to any school or even homeschooling.
No, it can buy a house.
Right.
It can.
I know.
No, that money can
do anything.
A number of things, and so that's good. It's not school. Mm-hmm. It's life. It's to get you started in life when you're 18. Right. And I suppose at a certain threshold, they hold some back for when you're 30. Right. I know that there are two withdrawal periods, but it's literally it's just taking a position. And so in that respect, I don't like money coming from the government at all. I don't like that. But I do have to credit him with taking a stand for children.
Right. Yes. Everything he's doing is trying to make the environment in this country better for kids, including what he's talking to do about boys and boys or girls, keep the boys out. Everything he's doing is trying to do that. At the end of the day, Sam, and I think you would agree with this, the way to fix kids has nothing to do with government. Keep them away from it. It's a family thing, right? Giving families more money, which is he's trying to do, excellent. As long as the parents get to decide where that money goes, that's great. But that's not the moral issue. That's not going to fix these problems. You eloquently speak and write about this. It's a family thing. It's a mom and dad thing. It's a moral thing. It's a character thing. That when you think, the last place I think of when I think morality and ethics and character, last place I think of is government in this world. The first place, it's got to be with your church and with your family. And so, but that's not something Trump has control over. So I'm glad to see using government to provide resources to let parents to do what parents alone can do.
But they must be able to go farther.
Right.
And so how would you, so I agree, obviously I agree with you. What is the job of the parent? Maybe that's where we start.
First and foremost, there is nothing you can give your kid that matters more than education. Toys, vacations, beautiful houses, bicycles, technology. When he's 30, 40, 50, when he gets married, she gets married, they're going to raise their own family. The only thing that we'll remember is how you prepared to live your life and to bring up your own kids.
One of my favorite products that I've recommended to a number of people is Neuromatic's Quiet Brain Oil. Quiet brain is what I need when I'm trying to go to sleep. What's great about Neuromatic's Quiet Brain Oil, it's a unique proprietary blend of essential oils, very pure and therapeutic grade essential oils like frankincense, myrrh, lavender, and sandalwood. And I love it. It helps me sleep at night. And most importantly, it's very easy to travel with. That first night in a hotel for me is always a little bit dicey. Am I going to sleep well? And with Neuromatic's Quiet Brain Oil, really helps me. So I highly recommend it. You can get it at sorbostudios.com, and we'll see you there. Hey there. If you're enjoying today's episode, take a moment, leave me a 5-star review, please. This is the way that people will be able to discover these conversations. And by the way, I will be reading some of these reviews on air. So whether yours is poignant or humorous or simply thoughtful, take a moment, leave me the review, and maybe yours will be the one that is chosen to read on air and share with the world. Thanks so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and all of that good stuff. I appreciate you. Now, you said education, but you're using it I think you're using it very broadly. Most people think school when you say education. So you need to clarify
what we said from the beginning of this, that you cannot have the one without the other. You cannot have education till you have morality. They must go together. Adam said it, right? America was made for moral. Educated and moral, right? And now we don't have either. And notice what they did. Before they could get rid of morality, they undermined education, right? Yes. They took over the schools.
Yes.
So I am using education somewhat broad, but what I'm trying to suggest is that what we do as parents every day is teach. Now, it's not always math, science, and reading, but we're teaching kids from the moment they're conceived, from the moment they're born. As parents, what we do is we help them make better choices. So why can we do that with every other aspect of a kid's life, but not teaching them how to multiply or divide? And that's the difference, right? If we took as much care of them when it comes to sitting down and reading books with them, doing math, teaching them some really cool history on the internet, right? We
Using
can do
a
that.
knife and fork.
Yeah, we could, yes, or cleaning up after the bathroom or putting the toys away. We do all that stuff, but somehow, in fact, it's much easier.
I don't think we do all that stuff anymore,
we
right?
should.
Because, and we talked briefly about this before, the schools have usurped the role of the parent. And so now we have people who don't even know how to parent. And that's why, I want you to drill down. What's the job of the parents? We can't make the assumption that the parent is teaching the child how to use a knife and fork. It's abysmal. I've seen people eating today, and they don't know how to use cutlery, and they don't know proper manners. And children don't know to open the door for somebody who's older than they are.
Well, that's because they weren't educated themselves. With every generation that rises, that goes through the public schools, they become more and more ignorant. The opposite of education is ignorance, and that is bigger than math and science.
Right.
You can be ignorant in all kinds of ways. So, for me to go back to your question, drilling down, you've got to be able to educate. That means morally and culturally, but and more parents. Not all of them, but more parents will correct their kids with basic behaviors than they will take a moment to sit down and make sure they're reading well. And it seems to me that
Which is too bad, yeah.
And that's the thing, right? That if without those things, you don't have anything. And what's one of the biggest problems we have, like in the inner city places like Milwaukee, is there's no discipline. Remember Obama? Remember he wrote a letter, a dear friend letter to all the public schools and said, disparate discipline. In the inner cities, where there's far fewer fathers with mothers and all that,
right?
Those kids are getting suspended more than kids in the suburbs. Therefore, it's racism.
Right.
So what do the public schools? Stop getting rid of discipline altogether.
Right. Just they got rid of it, yeah.
And now it's a zoo.
Right.
Right? That's how the whole system works.
So, are you seeing parents in Freedom Project Academy learning some of this?
The fact that they choose us means that they're aware.
Right.
And once you're aware, you can take anybody anywhere. But like you said, we have so many ignorant people who aren't even aware what they should do.
Right.
The biggest problem we have is we got moms and dads who want a good education for their kids. And then they get us to do it. But we keep trying to remind them, we can give them the facts and the figures, but Mom, you have to make sure the kids doing the homework, because this is what we get. We get parents who are relieved to come to Freedom Project because classical Christian education, but then they don't pay any attention to what their kids are doing in the bedroom.
It's full drop off.
Right. So they figured, okay, it's just like the public schools. Instead of dumping them off at the school, they're up in their room with the door closed while they're doing something else, and the kids are watching porn or they're gaming, and nothing gets turned in.
How do you circumvent that? Because obviously you don't want that. You've got an 80% graduation going to college, right? I think you have a 100% graduation rate,
yes.
But you've got 80% of your graduates that go on to college, which is a really perfect score. Because 100% of children should not be going to college.
Exactly.
So 80% is probably perfect. Might be a little high. We could talk about
Understood.
that. But you've got to bring the parents along somehow.
What we do is something the public schools don't. If you can't do the work, we can't graduate you. We fail you. If we get to the end of you join us, and at the end of the first semester,
right.
Your kid's getting an F. He's turned nothing in.
Right.
And every month we call the parents.
Every month.
Every month.
Who calls the parents?
We have the advisors, the people who work here.
You have advisors, yeah.
Yep. Every single month we call them, and if they have grades below C, we do it more often. It's amazing how many people will not answer the phone, will not respond to voice messages.
But they're paying.
Right? So, but if after
I'm paying you not to answer the phone.
Exactly.
That's what I'm paying
fine.
for.
But then we won't keep you in the school.
And they know that.
Yep. So we will remove kids sometimes after the first semester if the parents won't get on board.
This is the difference between a school, a government, I don't like to call it public school, a government school that's funded, they're going to be funded with regardless. And in fact, you would think that they'd not be incentivized to pass the kid because they'd get more money if they just kept the kid. But they can't afford to keep the kid for too long because it makes them that makes them look bad. So they have to have that graduation rate, and it's third-party payer. Right? And that's the problem. I mean, foundationally, that's the problem, is the socialist third-party paying system.
Kids need accountability. we tell parents the first time they come to our class, we have deadlines. We require you to turn things.
Do you do an orientation for the parents?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the parents who are accountable, we teach the kids, but it's their job to make sure the kids are doing what they're supposed to. Those kids excel they absolutely love it. That's the 80% that are going to school. But what you don't see is we get 25% of our parents who drop them off, right? Like you said. And the kids, by the third week of the first semester, they're already behind. They're turning nothing in. And at the end of the semester, if the parents have not responded to us, we remove the kids.
Children, I often say children spell love, Time. Mm-hmm. And we've forgotten that in our culture. So you're doing great work here at Freedom Project Academy, teaching academics to kids and some character. But the rest of the character has to come from the parents,
Yes.
don't you think?
So yes, what we see is the kids, like kids have always been. You have to push them a little bit to sit down and read. It's hard for them to put away their toys. It's hard for them to focus, to turn off the TV. But that's the job of the parent, right?
Right.
And that's what we're not seeing with some of our moms and
Right.
dads. Even the ones who know their kids need the good education,
Right.
they won't even go so far as to do that. I can't tell you how many times I've heard over the years, well, Janie just doesn't want to do her homework, so I guess we're going to put her back in the public school. Janie's 11 and she wants to hang out with her girlfriends at the public school, so we want her here, but we're going to put her back because we want to make her happy.
Because the children make the decisions
Yep.
in the home these days.
Mm-hmm.
It's very sad. My kids have no tolerance for that.
Yeah.
They hear about that and they're like, Mom.
You raised them right. And so this idea that we got to be and the public school teachers are doing it. They become your teacher, your kids'
Friend.
parent and friend.
Yes.
Your mean mommy won't let you become trans, but will use your pronouns.
Yes.
That's how they separate that
Yes.
from them, right?
Yes.
And so the scourge of parenting is the idea that, have you heard of this soft parenting?
Gentle parenting.
Gentle. Yes, the idea that we don't raise our voices and we don't tell them what to do and we allow them to find their own path. Complete garbage.
So it's funny because initially when I heard gentle parenting, I said, yes, absolutely, because you should never have to raise your voice with
You
your
shouldn't
child.
be violent with kids, no.
Right? And so to me, that's what that meant. But then I started to understand what other people were meaning, like basically don't parent them. And I'm like, oh, no, that doesn't work.
Look, we both know that.
Gentle parenting is, oh, I'm sorry you stayed out after your curfew. Now you're grounded for the rest of the month.
That's right, but it's morphed.
bad for you.
But it's morphed into, well, you're a young lady now. You're 12, so you make your own decisions. Just if you get in trouble, give us a call.
Right.
Here's a quarter. Right.
Right. No. Okay. I wanted to tell you before we were off air. I interviewed somebody 2 days ago, and she's one of your moms.
Oh.
She sends her kids to Freedom, and she absolutely adores Freedom Project Academy. It was the answer that she was looking for just post-COVID when everything was just going to hell in a handbasket in the schools. So I just wanted to bring you that accolade.
We're a good school, again, if mom's engaged
Right.
and dads. But could you say that about every school?
But you could really... No, you can't.
couldn't?
No. There's something about the classical
There is.
methodology. There's something about the way that you've constructed it. Her kids are full-time, but you guys do full-time, like on your own schedule, and then full homeschool. So pick and choose,
Yeah, we have
go
three
at your
different-
own
yep.
thing, and right. So there are 3 different ways to engage with Freedom Project, but it's the curriculum that you're offering that really, I think, makes an enormous difference. Are you looking for quality homeschooling resources? Apologia offers top-notch curriculum for all ages. It's designed to inspire a love of learning and a strong foundation in faith. Head over to apologia.com and use code SORBO10 to get 10% off your next purchase. Equip your children with the best education tools and save today at Apologia, the trusted choice for homeschooling families. So you're a professor. What is your these are 3 questions that I ask all my guests. What's your educational background? I'm sure you use it in your current career, but how is it different than what you went to school for?
Always been a professor. Sorry.
I stumped him.
No, it's how do I make this
Right.
concise? I have always cared about education. When I was a little kid, when I was in third grade, I had a 12th grade reading level. I loved reading books. And so when I went to college, I'm the first person in my family to go to college. I just started reading books over and over again. And so the only way I could keep reading books was to become a professor and talk about books. So for me, it's always been the thing. One of the most glorious thing, I as a public school, a professor at a public university, I see how badly and poorly these kids read because the school systems have neglected them.
And they hate reading.
They hate it. And they hate books. And so for me, being involved with Freedom Project was amazing because I couldn't fix the colleges. But what I could do is help to
better students.
Yes, help to create an organization like this where the kids are learning to read. So when
love
they
the books.
come to college, it's much better.
Yeah. That's beautiful. What advice would you give your younger self?
Cynically, don't be a professor. It's beating your head against a wall. I probably would have tried to find a way to become an advocate for education without being a professor. I knew this was going to happen when I was getting my PhD 30 years ago. I knew this day was going to come where the universities would stop actually teaching and engage in this kind of stuff. I thought I'd get through to retirement, but I didn't. So I guess what I'm doing now getting into it earlier would have been better for me.
But don't be a professor. You must have those few students that are the bright shining stars. Yeah.
Not everyone should be a missionary, but if you're going to be a professor and you have our worldview,
right.
it's a
missionary.
Yes,
yeah.
And that's a hard life. Being a missionary is difficult.
I can see that. What's the most urgent cultural shift needed today to?
As much as important as math is, the thing that fuels success is reading. And the ignorance when it comes to reading is so much worse than math. Because if you can read a book, you can read a book and teach yourself math.
Right.
If you can do math, you can't read.
That's right.
And that's the difference. And it's not surprising that the destruction of reading is the worst thing going on right now. Because when you can read, and I tell this to my university kids, you're right. Sometimes my missionary work works. Every semester, I get 4 or 5 kids out of 30 who completely change their worldview. Just takes one semester. But as I tell them, because they're reading at about my freshmen in high school, in college, have a 6th grade reading level, middle school. The problem is that even when I wake these kids up and I tell them, the problem is that can you now walk into a library and read Shakespeare? And they can't. And that's the tragedy. 30 years ago.
Hold on. They can't even after taking your course because even though they're reading at a much better level, they're still not at the level to read.
No, by the time they graduate, they have about a 9th grade level.
Exactly.
Freshmen in high school.
I want to make that clear to the audience because, I just did a quick study on this, and the sentence structures from the turn of the century back in the late 1800s were complex.
Oh man.
With lots of and I'm reading Dickens right now, and the paragraph is this long, and that's one sentence. It's this long, it's several lines, and it's so intricate, and yet by the end of the sentence you know what he meant. But only if you're reading at the right level.
Yeah, and the thing is that with my kids, and now the technology, we were undermining education.
Well, we're writing in pictures now. We've gone back to hieroglyphics.
And we're reading 140 characters. Literally, my kids, they can't trace an argument from one page to the next. They get lost. They can get through a couple sentences, but to ask them, you're not going to believe this. Last semester, I had 3 classes, about 150 kids, all Wisconsin kids. And I asked them first day of class, raise your hand. These are freshmen. Raise your hand if you have ever read a book cover to cover. In 150 kids, only 6 said they've ever read a book
lying.
cover to cover. They can't. They can't do it.
Right.
Because it's discipline. Reading is discipline. You've got to focus. You've got to be able to think, to carry from page to page, chapter to chapter.
Right.
Right. And these kids do not have the ability, intellectually, cognitive, to do it because they
haven't trained themselves.
Yes. I'm being long-winded, but I got to say this. Remember 30 years ago? I knew it was coming when they started giving kids calculators in math class in high school. I knew it was going to happen. The calculator is you don't know it, it knows it. And then in the last 20 years, what have they done?
Right.
And what is AI doing?
Yes.
You got Grammarly
They'll write
out
it for you.
there.
Yeah.
Yep. You got AI. 95% of the writing I get from the university kids is all AI. The smart kids will take the AI paper and put stupid mistakes in it because I can catch it otherwise. And so the smart ones get AI writes the paper.
And then they put in typos.
Yep.
That's
and
crazy.
And you almost can't bust them then. But you can tell. Because when they write in class, they write like fourth graders.
Right.
When they turn their papers in,
It's done.
It's
Yeah.
all fake stuff. And it's almost impossible to call them out on it because, again, the dumb ones, the lazy ones, it's easy. You run them
Right.
through an AI and you can bust them. So they've figured it out how to do it. You just dumb it up a little bit. So they cannot read and they will not do it. They don't like it. And number two, they hate reading. And if you can't read, you're never going to be able to write.
No, gosh, no.
That's a long-winded way to say reading is the number one thing that we're destroying.
And by the way, writing is thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So what you've just said is if you can't read, you can't think.
That's right.
It's very sad.
Yep. And so these kids are effectively illiterate. And not simply being able to read text is not literacy, right? These kids are functioning illiterates. And the other thing that's really horrible about this, with that you lose curiosity.
Yes.
Right? Why did I like reading books? Because it answered questions for me. It made me want to know more. These kids because the machines do it. They don't have any intellectual curiosity. They'll be reading the Gospels, like one of the classes that I teach, and they won't know a word. They will not. You remember you and me had to go to the library
go look it up in the dictionary.
Encyclopedia. They will pick this up. They won't do it for 5 seconds. I say 5 seconds, you'd get the answer. How come you won't do it? And they shrug their shoulders.
Not interested.
So they have all this, and they still won't do it. So by not teaching kids to read, to write, you are taking away from them curiosity, which is how do you become educated? If you're not even a tiny bit interested in math, you're never going to learn it, right?
Yes.
You got to have some curiosity. And all this technology drains the life out of kids. It's all right there. In fact, the kids know. Everything I would ever need to know is in this little box.
Right.
So why should I even bother look at it?
It knows it.
Right. I don't have to know it.
Oh.
Yep.
We've ended on a very bleak note.
Yeah, we got to raise this up a little bit, huh?
Well, there are places where you can change the culture.
And I would say if you give me a chance to try to give my spin on what's better, education in this country has never been worse. And yet there are more places in the country today where you can get an excellent education if you want it. So more than ever before, cheap, available, easy to get into places, including places like Freedom Project.
Yeah, I want to point out, It's not that expensive.
No, it's not.
Like the government's offering families $8,000 to homeschool their kids. That's 5 times what they need.
Yep.
Right? So they can buy the flat screen TVs because it's no strings attached. I'm just saying.
Well, kids already have technology. This is the funny thing. The one thing kids don't need is more technology.
No, it's
they
true.
got that.
It's true.
But so there are all kinds of options.
Yes.
But again, for mom and dad, if you think you can't do it, you're wrong.
Right.
If you won't do it, there will people who will do it for you. Mm-hmm. But you got to pick one of those options. It is no longer okay to send your kid to public schools. Doing it is a desperate move because they might get their soccer games and they might have friends, but their future is going to be awfully bleak. Not just as educated people, but as human beings.
As human beings.
Yeah.
Agreed. Because there's no character in the government schools. There's no morality. And so they just grow up thinking that they're an accident of nature and they have no value.
And then
That's
the
nihilism.
radical sexuality.
Yeah.
And when my college kids, when I ask them moral questions, for whether it's abortion or the capital punishment, anything you think, their answer is, let people do what they want. That's the whole morality of this generation that we've taught them.
That's communism.
Yep. Whatever you want, and I'll ask them, what if I want violent things? What if I want things that are self-destructive? The response is, well, you're entitled to choose whatever you want. They cannot even think that if what I want is violence, that I'm going to be placing that violence
Right.
on some. They don't even think about that.
What if I want you dead?
Yep.
Like, what if that? And they're like,
They-
well,
it's been kicked into their heads that
Yeah.
they're bad people if they draw boundaries.
right.
Yep. So they accept everything.
So that's the theme, is boundaries.
Again.
Dr. Duke Pesta, thank you so much for coming on the
Thanks,
program.
Sam.
That's it for me. Thanks so much for tuning in to this edition of the Sam Sorbo Show. Remember, speak truth and speak it boldly. We'll see you next time. Hey there. If you're enjoying today's episode, take a moment, leave me a 5-star review, please. This is the way that people will be able to discover these conversations. And by the way, I will be reading some of these reviews on air. So whether yours is poignant or humorous or simply thoughtful, take a moment, leave me the review, and maybe yours will be the one that is chosen to read on air and share with the world. Thanks so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and all of that good stuff. I appreciate you.
The views and opinions expressed in the Sam Sorbo Show are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views and positions of the Herzog Foundation.